Okay, good morning or good afternoon, everyone. Today is Friday, April 9th, 2021, and contrary to yesterday where we didn't have too much to talk about, you can bet your ass we have a lot to talk about today, whether it's the Hunter Biden stuff, Prince Phillip, you name it. So let's jump right into it. Pardon me if I go on a little bit of a rant, but I think it's about time that we cover this. So, Prince Philip died. This is probably one of the few people on the planet where I could honestly care less. Seriously. And that's just my personal opinion. I'm sure many of you share the same thing. Now, there's one side of it saying, if we jump into like the conspiratorial side, or even not even conspiratorial, possible side, I would rather say, there's the possibility that, Prince Philip's soul has been transferred, right? Which, again, he was seen with a black eye shortly before he went in for his quote unquote heart operation, which was just a month or two ago, right? And then he passed away. Now, again, it's possible, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I would certainly say that it's definitely doable, especially for the elite and these kind of people. With that being said, the British tabloids, from my understanding, because I've been trying to keep up to date with what's been going on there, some of them are trying, I don't know if it's just for clicks or views or whatever, but some are trying to say that, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's leaving has, caused his death because it caused so much emotional distraught. Look, people go through family traumatizing events all the time. Why the hell does it make it any different if just because it's Prince Philip? Like, here's the thing. Why didn't they, okay, I live in Canada. Canada's still part of the Commonwealth, right? So some of our tax dollars still do go to the what they call the royal purse. And this is my opinion. Personally, I think it's a bunch of nonsense. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Australia is also part of the Commonwealth too. But my point is this. In Canada already, Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister, a bunch of people in Canada are saying, oh, we should, honor Prince Philip, this and that. What about his freaking son, Andrew? I'm not trying to look for little things, gotcha. These are not little things to say, oh, gotcha. Everyone makes mistakes in life, yes, but this whole thing of, oh, he was a leader, so he was a leader to the public, but he couldn't raise his own son because his son became, a spoiled, self-entitled person who thought he could get away with anything and then became a pedophile. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that he's, I kind of am, because he raised his son, technically speaking, right? We all know that probably they had maids and servants that raised them, but what a load of baloney. These people get away with everything and then they get honored after they died. Like, what the hell is this? So anyways, there were some things I saw this morning. For example, people were saying, oh, Prince Philip died. That's one down, six more to go or whatever. Like, so I'm not going to comment on that. But there's just so much I could say about the whole Prince Philip royal family thing. I mean, whether it's, Prince Andrew and then Harry and Meghan, now Prince Philip. I don't know. I honestly, I don't know, nor do I really care. The guy died, all right? There's going to be all kinds of stuff circulating. The next thing is that the rapper DMX died. Now, here's the thing. We don't know for certain, at least from my understanding, whether or not it was from a drug overdose, because he died from a heart attack, which may have been the result of a drug overdose. But some sources are saying now, inside sources are saying it was actually not from drugs. He had been off them for a little while, but he actually got the COVID vaccine, which may have caused this. Here's the thing. If you do drugs for many, many years on end, I'm talking like tons of years, because the human body's pretty resilient. I'm not a doctor, but the body generally bounces back. Now, if his heart was weakened from, 20, 30, 40 years of use of crack cocaine, which he self-admitted he used, it's very possible that, when he took the vaccine, there was some, I'm not trying to sound like a doctor here, but something that could have caused this. But with that being said, I don't want to start making speculations and this and that just out of nothing, right? The next thing is, okay, we're going to cover the Hunter Biden thing, then we're going to go with what's going on around the world too. So, the thing with Hunter Biden, I honestly feel like I missed out on saying a lot of stuff that I wanted to say regarding Prince Philip, but I don't care to even try to remember. So, people die all the time, right? The next thing is that, and I mean, it's a terrible way to look at it, but it's true. What makes Philip different than the very true and unfortunate children dying of poverty and things like this all over the world, right? So those children don't get honored and their souls are more pure than Philip's, I could tell you that. Anyways, Hunter Biden. So we all know about the whole laptop thing. Some people said it was fake, this and that. There's a lot of angles to cover here. So first off, Hunter Biden, as confirmed by Daily Mail independent forensic experts, have found that the laptop was in fact authentic and the laptop was real. And Hunter basically admitted in a CBS interview, he said, well, I don't know if it's real. It could be real. It could not be. That's basically saying yes, right? Now, long story short, text messages came out of Hunter and of Hunter and his father Joe. And basically Hunter Biden, he lied about he lied about his identification with regards to getting a gun and stuff like that, which is a felony, right, in the United States. Although the argument is that many others do it, but here's the thing. When you're the son of the president of the United States, this doesn't really look good on you, right? Hunter Biden, there's also proof and text messages that Hunter Biden went to Hollywood hotels and stuff to do all kinds of drugs, crack, meth, Xanax, and all that with hookers. But here's the thing. He took Secret Service agents with him. You're not supposed to do that, right? So let's be consistent. I would say this about, for example, Donald Trump Jr. if this was the case, but it has yet to be the case, right? I mean, they have their own issues that they're dealing with, but again, the problem I have here specifically is not necessarily what Hunter Biden was doing. The guy's 51 years old, spoiled, entitled. His dad bailed him out of everything. We know that. We get that. The problem I have is this, more so with Twitter and Facebook. So before the election, all right, the whole thing about Hunter Biden's laptop was circulating on social media. Twitter and Facebook started removing the story because they said, well, it's disinformation. Here's the problem. Twitter and Facebook themselves, more so Twitter, did not know that it was disinformation. They just went around saying it, right? Now, what ended up happening after was that it was proven that the laptop was legitimate, and then when asked, when questioned by Senator Ted Cruz to Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, in a Senate hearing on big tech censorship, they said, okay, the laptop was real, so and therefore the story from the New York Post was legitimate. Why did you remove it before the election? And Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, then said, okay, it turns out we were wrong. It was not misinformation. It was real, but we removed it because the information from this article in the New York Post was obtained illegally, right? And then Ted Cruz made a very good point to Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter. He said, hold on, Donald Trump's taxes from the New York Times report were also obtained illegally. Why didn't you censor that? And Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, did not have an answer for that. Now, I'm not trying to play whataboutism, excuse me. I'm not trying to play gotcha. I'm saying if we're going to be, outraged by a certain scenario or a certain thing, we have to be consistent. So if Joe Biden's son Hunter has all this stuff coming out, text messages, grabbing guns, buying drugs, drug trafficking, prostitution, all evidence of this on the laptop, Secret Service agents defending Hunter when they're not supposed to because it's not technically, allowed. We have to be consistent. So if that's the case there, if something comes out about Don Jr. or, more about Matt Gaetz, we're going to cover it. We got to be consistent. This applies on both sides, guys. Now, the point I'm trying to say is this. With Twitter and Facebook, how can you go around saying it's disinformation before the election? Turns out it's not, but then they say, well, we still blocked it out from being spread online or having a conversation about it because it was obtained illegally. That's not the point. The point is, who said that Twitter and Facebook can be the moral arbiters of the world? Now, here's the thing. Because they have so many people on their platform, that's the problem, right? The question then becomes, where do you draw the line? Technically speaking, though, and let's just assume, which it wasn't. We now know it was not. But let's just assume the Hunter Biden laptop was disinformation. In theory, disinformation is still free speech. Now, I'm not advocating for disinformation, obviously, but I'm genuinely asking this question because I will admit I myself don't have the answer. Where do we draw the line? When does Twitter and Facebook say, okay, we're not going to step in to censor this because we ourselves don't know? Twitter and Facebook were influenced by the politicians in Washington, D.C. to cover up the Hunter Biden story before the election. Right? And I'm not trying to say this to harp on Trump should have won. It's not even about that. Biden could have been running against freaking, I don't know, that's just Ronald Reagan. You know what I mean? I don't care. That's not the point. The point is that with Twitter and Facebook, if they themselves don't know when something is misinformation or real, why should they start censoring stuff? Maybe if they want, and even then, maybe I'm giving them too much leeway here, but for the sake of hypotheticals, let's just bring this up. Maybe if they want, they could put a notification under the tweet or the article on Facebook and Twitter saying, independent fact checkers cannot confirm this or whatever. And even then, independent fact checkers have been known to lie too. So this is the big problem here. It's not so much what has come out, even though some of it is with regards to Hunter and his dad and all that, in terms of, faking ID and all that kind of stuff. And that his dad made all this stuff go away, blowing hundreds of thousands on drugs, couldn't take care of his own kids. Biden had to bail him out. People make mistakes, I get that. But a 51-year-old who's been privileged his whole life, clearly there's something going on there, right? So the point is this, though. Where do we draw the line on this? Okay, and here's the thing as well. Technically speaking, Hunter Biden committed a ton of felony charges, technically speaking. How does this look on the optics of the presidential family? Now, in reality, nothing's going to happen to him. We know that. We're not even going to talk about the possible ramifications, right? Again, mainstream media is not even covering it. But the point I'm trying to make here is that, At what point do we say, like, okay, what is free speech, what isn't? Do you know what I'm saying? And technically speaking, free speech by definition is free speech unless it's hate speech and this and that. But anyways, sorry for the rant. I just hope you guys see what I'm saying here. This is getting too ridiculous with the censorship and stuff. Because look, it now turns out the Hunter Biden stuff was legitimate, right? So again, now could there have been some disinformation mixed in with that? Absolutely, but that doesn't mean you scrap the whole thing, you know. So, anyways. And there's tons more stuff, by the way, on the Prince Phillip and Hunter Biden thing. Just check out the Daily Mail article. You see the pictures, the text messages between Joe Biden and Hunter. You could see, look, I'm going to be real. Joe Biden was bailing his son out, and it's true. Like, I mean, you got to bail out your 51-year-old son. Clearly, there's an issue. You know what I mean? Anyways, this is what happens with most of these privileged people growing up in political families with money and can get away with a lot of stuff. So the next thing is that New Zealand has banned entry of all travelers coming from India due to the alleged substantial increase in cases. Look, like I said, like I generally believe, and like we generally believe too, from a non-biased perspective, they're their own country. If they want to do what they want, and it doesn't necessarily affect others, then sure. I mean, we could say that there may be many Indian people that have businesses in New Zealand, but again, it's New Zealand's choice. It's their country, right? The next thing is that ex-pro NFL player Phillip Adams killed 5 people, then himself. Yeah, that I want to look into that more because I'm not sure if he had mental health issues or what have you, but it's very sad to see. Oh, and also, by the way, very quickly, this may mean something to some of you, may not, but Prince Philip died at 9 a.m. on the 9th of April, the 99th day of his birthday at the age of 99, whatever. So, 99th day of the year. The next thing is that a volcano in the island of St. Vincent in the southern Caribbean erupted, spewing clouds of ash, and an evacuation is underway. Apparently, 16,000 people are being evacuated. Well, look, when these things happen, I'm not going to lie, I'd like to get a perspective on if there's going to be a UFO there. Every time there's a natural disaster, there's a UFO there. Some have even argued that these are direct energy weapons being used from outer space, like, the rods from God that actually make certain volcanoes erupt in order to stabilize the, I guess we could say, the environment of the Earth. Maybe the environment's a poor choice of words, but you know what I mean. The government keeps their, secretly, at a very classified level in correspondence with a lot of aliens, they kind of keep their eyes on this stuff in terms of maintaining the environment. But anyways, the next thing is that a Greek journalist was shot dead outside of his Athens home. Greece is a beautiful country. The people are very, very nice people. The government, again, they've had problems for years, get it with financial bailouts and things like that. Could this be a cover-up? Could the journalist have pissed somebody off locally? Could this have been a cover-up? The journalist was onto something that would have made Greece only look worse, which then would have, made other major world countries reluctant to invest in Greece or, bail them out and things like this, possibly. I mean, these things do happen very sadly. So, again, it's a very strange, and dirty world out there. The next thing is that Egyptologists uncovered a lost golden city buried under the sands in Egypt. That's cool. I'm curious to see how much they're going to hide and how much they're going to make public. The next thing, this is pretty big, is that HSBC and Wells Fargo and many other banks have now closed their accounts within Lebanon's central bank. I don't know specifics on this. I will admit, I don't know. But it'll be interesting to see what comes of this because the Lebanon Central Bank is interesting. I don't know specifics. I'm sure some of you listening or watching know more than I do in this regard. But they're doing it for a reason. They've either been, told at a secretive level, let's be real here, because, there's an economic shift occurring and there may be some strategic alignments that have to be taken place within the intelligence community financially for certain things to be set up with an intelligence operation. And ultimately, the reasoning, most of it's a puppet show. The vast majority of it's a puppet show. Every so often, the real thing kind of leaks through. But what I'm seeing here, and I think what everyone else is seeing, is that this is what formulates an intelligence apparatus. All these countries always have to be aware of the fact that within, when big banks make moves and stuff like that, they're very carefully calculated. This is not a mistake. Now, mistakes happen, but HSBC and Wells Fargo don't pull out of the Lebanon Central Bank just randomly because of a mistake. You know what I mean? And even their public reasoning may not in fact be even be the real truth or a fraction of it, or you name it, right? The next thing is that Biden is being pressed to label foreign hate groups as terrorists. I don't know what foreign hate groups they're referring to here, so they'd have to be more specific. Biden's also trying to add some gun restrictions. If I'm not mistaken, there was a shooting in Texas yesterday. 4 people, I think, died, if I'm not mistaken. Don't quote me on that. 4 people died in a park, I think, just a public park. From what I can recall, but I could be wrong on that, so I don't want to be spreading BS. But I this goes back to the thing with guns. You know, I don't know if I want to get into that at this moment, but it's interesting. Like, he's calling for tighter gun laws so people cannot, fake their identification to get a gun or things like this. Meanwhile, I mean, his own son did it, so technically speaking, like, the argument is that Joe Biden is trying to tighten gun laws, and then it would make people like his own son have a harder time to get guns. But I mean, in the optics of the presidential family, if you really want to be accountable and be consistent, shouldn't you then, technically speaking, have your son be reprimanded of some kind, or just be treated like everybody else, the appropriate charges, you know what I mean, as what anyone else would do when it comes to tax evasion and this and that and yada yada, all the BS that he got himself into, right? So anyways, and the final thing is that Bernie Sanders, and this is interesting, so Bernie Sanders, who is generally, I mean, here's what's interesting about him. He says a lot of things that he doesn't end up following through on, but he resonates with the people because, and Bernie Sanders and Trump actually shared a lot of voters. And I'm not trying to shit on Bernie Sanders, but he played pure typical politician this time around. And what I mean by that is this. He was on MSNBC, where normally they throw softball questions to progressives and leftists because it's MSNBC, right? It's the left version of what people say is, the right wingers and all that. So Bernie Sanders dodged MSNBC questions on why he did not withhold his vote on the COVID bill, like Joe Manchin has been doing in this case, but except this time do it for minimum wage, and Bernie dodged the question. So let me explain this as concisely as I can. Joe Manchin was withholding his vote on some relief packages because he said he didn't want, if I'm not mistaken, $15 minimum wage or something like this. Long story short, when a senator with a pretty powerful position does not vote and approve something, in this case, one vote can truly hold back a bill passing through. And Joe Manchin is a Democrat, but he's considered a centrist one. He tends to lean conservative on a lot of things, and I'm not even trying to criticize that whatsoever, because it depends who you ask, right? But the point is this. On MSNBC, Bernie Sanders was asked, okay, why don't you withhold your vote? Because you believe so strongly in getting $15 minimum wage for the people of America. And guys, the point here is not to discuss $15 minimum wage. Let's put that aside for a second. But Bernie was asked by an anchor on MSNBC, a fairly new one, why don't you do what Manchin does and say, listen, I'm not going to vote yes on passing this bill through unless we have $15 minimum wage for the American people. And Bernie Sanders dodged the question. He said, well, I'm not the president. You should ask Joe Biden, the president. And then he went on to say, listen, he dodged the question by saying, this is the most progressive relief bill ever done. And this is the same thing, I think I said it last week, to when Ilhan Omar said the same talking point when they get pressed on why didn't they push more and more for, Medicare for all or $15 minimum wage. And I'm not saying I agree with those things. I'm just saying when they got asked, they said, well, it's the most progressive bill that's ever been, relief bill that's ever been done. Yeah, because there's been no other relief bill ever. The last time there was a virus was 100 years ago. You see what I'm saying here? So it's easy to say this is the most progressive relief bill ever because there's never been another one. You know what I mean? So anyways, guys, sorry for a bit of the ranting today. I mean, it's Friday. I'm in a good mood. I hope you all are too. So we'll catch you all later on. Not sure if I'll be putting out an episode today or be doing some live streaming. We'll see what happens. But anyways, thank you so much for watching or listening, and we'll catch you later. Cheers.